Please go ahead, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Councillor Jennifer McKelvey, and I'm Chair of Scarborough Community Council. The clerk has confirmed that we have quorum, so I'd like to now call meeting 20 to order. Welcome, everyone. This meeting is being held using the city's WebEx technology, with members of council participating by video conference. City staff are also connecting to the meeting via video conference. As City Hall remains closed, the public continues to participate electronically, and you can watch the meeting streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Toronto City Council Live. Because we are meeting remotely, I ask for your patience with any delays and technical issues. We currently have people registered to speak who have been connected to the meeting by audio. The list of speakers can be viewed online by visiting the Scarborough Community Council page at toronto.ca/council and clicking the speakers box for today's meeting. Before we begin, I want to remind you about the important health and safety measures that we must all follow today. Attendance in the room is limited to only those persons who are required for the meeting. The city's clerk, audiovisual, and IT staff are there downtown. Members, this is a paperless meeting. The city clerk has provided all agenda materials via CMP, the clerk's meeting portal, including any confidential materials. Clerk's IT staff will be available remotely to participants to help with your devices. I would like to remind staff to keep their mics muted with their videos turned off unless they need to answer questions or speak to the committee. This will make it easier for me as chair and for those watching on YouTube to observe members as they participate in the debate and vote on items. As part of each agenda item, I will ask members to raise their hand or unmute their mic if they wish to speak or question staff. I will then create a speakers list and will call on members when it is their turn to speak. When voting on an item or motion, I ask that members ensure they turn on their video if applicable and to raise their hand to indicate their vote. To ensure that I can see all members, I will ask that you keep your hands raised until I've reviewed all the members' votes. Members, I want to remind you, you must still submit and approve your motions by email. Staff are available at stc@toronto.ca to help with motions. If there are any visiting members of council attending the meeting today, I see none. I encourage you to also turn on your video. Although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, the Community Council would like to acknowledge the land we are meeting on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Are there any declarations of interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act? If you do have an interest, please raise your hand or unmute your mic and indicate the item number and the nature of the interest. Seeing none, I now need a motion to confirm the minutes from our last meeting on November 9th, 2020. Moved by Councillor Ainsley. All in favor? Any opposed? The motion for the meeting minutes passes. Before we move through the agenda, we have a request from the clerk to add 2 new items of business for election of chair and vice chair. Can I please have a motion to add these to the agenda? Moved by Councillor Thompson. All in favor? All those opposed? That's carried. The first item is SC 20.8, election of chair. I now pass it off to the clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members, are there any nominations for chair?
Councillor Ainsley, it's my pleasure to nominate Councillor McKelvey for chair. She's been doing a great job filling in at this half of the term, and I know she'll do a great job finishing out the rest of this term. Thank you.
Councillor Ainsley has nominated Councillor McKelvey. I'm calling for nominations again. Are there any further nominations for chair? I'm calling for nominations a second time. Are there any further nominations for chair? I am calling for nominations a third and final time. Are there any further nominations for chair? Hearing no further nominations, I declare that the nominations are now closed. As Councillor McKelvey is the only nominee, she is declared the chair of the Community Council.
Thank you. And you'll be continuing with the election of the vice chair?
Certainly. Members, are there any nominations for vice chair?
I'll let
Madam
Deputy
Clerk?
Mayor Thompson do it.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to nominate our esteemed colleague, Councillor Cynthia Lai.
I will second that nomination, not that we need one.
Councillor Thompson has nominated Councillor Lai. I'm calling for nominations again. Are there any further nominations for vice chair? I am calling for nominations a second time. Are there any further nominations for vice chair? I'm calling for nominations a third and final time. Are there any further nominations for vice chair? Hearing no further nominations, I declare that the nominations are now closed. As Councillor Lai is the only nominee, she's declared vice chair of Community Council.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson.
That concludes the elections of the chair and vice chair. Thank you so much to the clerk for conducting that. We can now go back to the regular agenda, correct?
Correct.
So first item is SC 20.1, preliminary report 75 to 85 Silver Springs Boulevard zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition applications in Ward 22. I will hold that item as there is one deputant on this, or Councillor Lai, I'll hold it for you. SC 20.2 preliminary report 3150 Eglinton Avenue East official plan and zoning amendment application Ward 24. Councillor Ainsley, I'll hold that in your name as there are two deputants. He's nodding. Okay. 20.3 assumption of services.
Oh, you didn't hear me say really?
Yeah. 20.3 assumption of services registered plan 66M to 2523 60 Bennett Road, Greengate Village Limited, Ward 25. As this is in Ward 25, I am happy to move staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? Item 20.3 carries. Item SC 20.4 designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes 168 to 184 Clonmore Drive and 2050 Bridletown Circle, Ward 20 in Ward 22. Councillor Crawford.
That.
Okay. Councillor Crawford's moving staff recommendations. All those in favor? Any opposed? Items carried. Item 20.5 designation of fire routes and amendment to Chapter 880 fire routes 1050 Ellesmere Road, Ward 21. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Voting on the staff recommendation. All those in favor? That's unanimous. Item carries. Items SC 20.6 compulsory stop control McMillan Avenue and Fergally Avenue in Ward 25. I'm prepared to move staff recommendations. All those in favor? Items unanimous. Item carries. Item SC 20.7 right turn and U-turn prohibitions Military Trail in Ellesmere Road. This is in Ward 25. I have two questions, so I will hold that. But I do expect that will be a quick item. I have been notified there is no additional business. Can I just confirm that with the clerk?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. So that brings us to item SC 20.1 preliminary report 75 to 85 Silver Springs Boulevard zoning bylaw amendment and rental housing demolition applications. We have one speaker. Mr. Glavick, are you on the line?
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
we can. You have 5 minutes.
Okay. Two main issues is one of the recommendations is to have a community consultation with the ward councillor. Since, as you're all aware, Ward 22 does not have a ward councillor until January 15 or somewhere around. Can staff wait until the by-election? Until most of these community consultations, as most of you are aware, barely have 20 people. And Scarborough Aging Court has Councillor Carigianis and even Norm Kelly, Jean Jeep and Eric Babikin, when they give out the information about the consultation, they do it bilingually. In I think it's Cantonese or Mandarin. The Aging Court has a big ethnic population that there's a language barrier to participate in a lot of these community consultations. So if city staff, after waiting for the result of the, what's it called, of the by-election to work with the new counselor, can they please do all the communication in Cantonese to Mandarin, other than the English? It's a huge Chinese population in Agincourt. I grew up in Agincourt and I lived there for 20 years. My family's still there, and there's the language barrier for any community consultation. I'm sure you all have different languages in your ward. I'm sure Councillor Lai in her ward also has a big Chinese population. That Chinese population in Agincourt barely comes to these community consultations, whatever it is. You can ask Jim Curry Janis for 30 years. He always did English and Cantonese or Mandarin, one of them. I can't tell them apart, but that is one issue that the language varies for a lot of us immigrants who haven't, the language varies. They can also do that, wait until the by-election and do all the communication bilingually. Thank you. That's it. Again.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the deputant? Okay, thank you. Are there questions for staff? Councillor Lai.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions for staff on this item. The first question I have is whether we are going to be demolishing. The first question I have is about the process of replacement of rental units in the city. Can staff tell me, there are 56 three-bedroom units currently on the site. So the residents will be offered the units in the new building. But what happens to those residents in the interim? Can somebody answer me that question?
Madam Chair, it's Paul Zuliani here. I'll forward this question to Christian Ventruska, who I see on the screen.
Good morning, everyone. Through the chair, Councillor, the rental housing application is under process, and it's consecutive or in parallel with the zoning and subdivision application. So your question was about the right of return, and should this application be recommended for approval by council, the tenant relocation plan would be part of that recommendation and would have to be approved, acceptable to city staff and approved by city council. So we're in earlier stages of this process, as you would well be aware, and there's a separate process for tenant-only consultation as part of the review of the application, where we'll understand what their needs could be and what potential hardships may occur should they be relocated from their unit.
I see. A further question would be, are there any recent examples in similar project in North Scarborough for this type of application?
You mean a rental demolition and relocation?
Yes.
We are seeing more of them. There haven't been any recommended for approval recently. One that comes to mind is some of the TCHC projects just west of Victoria Park in Councillor Carroll's ward, where revitalization has occurred and tenants have been temporarily relocated to other TCHC properties or other properties, other rental properties, and then they come back to the new units once they're constructed.
Okay. My final question would be, would there be any issue with having what the deputant has suggested, that to make the consultation bilingual, like, in another language?
There would be no issue. We have been in some files elsewhere in the city doing synchronous translation through WebEx. We also always have worked with the former councillor's office and will with the new councillor's office about making sure that notices are translated and are made available to the public in at least one other language and sometimes two.
So it's currently being done. So I don't need any motion or anything to direct staff to do these type of thing, do I?
it's up to you if you wish to move a motion through the chair, but this is a standard practice for us in this part of Scarborough, and we've also, of course, worked with your office on translation as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Those are my questions.
Deputy Mayor Thompson?
Very much, Madam Chair. Through you to staff. So this is I guess, an area where the lands are being assembled in order to demolish and build something bigger, larger, with more units.
Through the chair, and my colleague Kelly Jones on the call can get into the particulars, but it actually is all one owner, and they are simply infilling on their site. It's Starlight Properties.
Okay.
And the demolition and redeployment of the units on the site is to facilitate access as well as more rational development blocks for the infill, but it is one owner.
Okay, that's helpful to know. Currently, there are how many units on that site?
Sorry, just give me a second and I'll...
Sure, take your time. That's fine, take your time.
Yeah. So, sorry, I'm limited to one screen right now, so...
No worries, take your time.
I'm just scrolling and talking to you at the same time, so hold on a second. So currently there are 56 units located on the property, and they will be retention of the 2 existing 9-story buildings, and then they're going to construct 4 purpose-built rental buildings. So in total, the proposal would result in 604 additional units. And sorry, right. I made an error on that first statement. It's actually 374 units that exist there now.
And it's 56 3-bedroom units that you were referring to initially.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. The information I have, there are 56, and then there are 286 units of varying other sizes and so on. I just wanted to understand sort of the quantum. So they're going to demolish the units that are there and rebuild, and the total new units are 604 units. Is that the count?
Yeah, that's 604. And if you want, I can go over the breakdown of each of the bedroom units.
That's fine. That's fine. I just wanted to sort of get just a general understanding. So, but what I really wanted to lead to, though, is that this is a planning staff-driven meeting. Is that correct? This is not a meeting driven by the local councillor, whether or not there is a councillor in office or not. It is the planning staff's meeting. Local councillor would be invited as a guest. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Right. And so the date that you would be looking at would be a date that would ensure that would be after the by-election would occur. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. We'd have to wait till that the elections happen and seated. So even to consult with a date for that.
Okay, so even to consult with a date for that. So then you're asking today for us to provide direction to ensure that the consultation meeting could take place, and you would consult with the councillor that's elected as a result of the by-election, correct? So you're not...
Through the chair, yeah. Through the chair, I believe that's correct, but perhaps Christian could just confirm that for me.
Yes, that's correct. We would just be waiting for the results of the by-election, but the application has been in and under review, and for the exact reasons you were asking these questions about quantum and rental replacement and correcting or getting this information on the public record, we advanced the report to today's meeting.
So it would be prudent for us to make a decision today to give you instructions to be able to set a date at the appropriate time, and also ensuring that the perfect world collides after a by-election.
Yes, that's correct. And we've advised the applicant we'd be waiting until the by-election is concluded, the councillor is seated, and we can fully brief him or her and consult with them on a possible date.
Okay. Thank you both very much for responding to my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from councillors? Okay, seeing none, although I can't see Councillor Inslee on the screen. To speak, Deputy Mayor Thompson.
I had her hand up as well. So because she started the line of questioning, maybe I'll let her go first and I'll follow her as the vice chair. Ladies first, Madam Chair.
Gentlemen, that's very, very kind of you, Deputy Mayor. First of all, I'd like to actually thank the Deputant, Mr. Glavick, to take time out of your schedule, your busy schedule, to care for Ward 22, for the residents of Ward 22. And it's very important that a non-Chinese person actually will anticipate to the needs of your neighbors. I'm actually very impressed, and without having I was going to actually suggest that, but I do that in my Ward 23, just which is neighboring. But I really, really commend you, Mr. Glavick, for caring enough for the community. And the other thing the other part I wanted to thank is our city staff, the planning staff in particular, and Christian, your team. You've been working really, really extra hard during this COVID-19, and I know there's a lot on your plate. And I really want to commend all your hard work and all your diligence in making sure our the Scarborough community is being well served, and everything is moving forward in a very prompt manner. Because with COVID-19, I know that, but and I've always said that time is money for a lot of people who are developing, and it's very important that we streamline all these process. And I know that your team has been working really super hard in achieving that. I really want to commend you on that one. And with this application, it's very important that with the rental housing demolition, we need to make sure that these tenants are going to be well taken care of. And I have no experience for this before, and that's why I asked whether there are any precedents that being set in the Scarborough area. So, but when I heard that there's a special consultation for the tenants, I feel more comfortable. And just going forward, I look forward to the consultation and to the finalizing of this file. Thank you. Those are my points. And I will support the recommendation of staff. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councillor Lai, Deputy Mayor Thompson.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I too want to support this application and move the recommendations contained in this report. First of all, I want to thank the staff because what we've heard from staff is that yes, we would provide the information in language so that the broader community would understand. And I commend certainly Councillor Lai for her doggedness in terms of continuing to ensure that there is full disclosure in multiple languages so people understand what's actually happening in their community. And I think it's the least we could do, but I know that the staff are aware of that and are working towards that. And certainly to thank the deputant for raising the issue. And as we've heard from staff, it's not lost on them. They understand and that they are doing that. So I think it's just important to ensure that all worlds collide to ensure that we get the right direction and focus. I want to really just speak to the application itself. I want to speak to the fact that Starlight, the developer, I want to say that this is one of the more progressive developers that's in this city. There are many progressive developers in the city, but I want to just say to members of council, Starlight has a number of investment in my ward. We've had one specific area in the community where we've been having huge challenges with a property that is owned by Starlight. And the challenges has certainly come about not as a result of the company, but as a result of, people in the area and people coming in and creating criminal activities and so on. But I want to just draw members of community council's attention that when my office brought this matter to Starlight, I was just so impressed with respect to how they came on board, listened, brought in security consultants to respond to the issues of the community was concerned about. And in other areas where they have developments, we have a development that's taking place right now with Starlight at Birchmount and Lawrence. I can say how they've come in and they've added to it's an infill situation in the community without disruption, without any, we've not received one complaint, for example, about the development. And obviously we know that developments do draw complaints and what have you. And so I'm encouraged with respect to what is being proposed in this application, in that they are creating more opportunities for rental accommodation and for people to live in the community, which we know the city has such a huge challenge with respect to affordable housing and having more options for people. And so I think that we need to move this along. The staff have given us their assurance that, the local councillor, when he or she is elected as part of the by-election, will be part of the process, and they will not be proceeding in advance of that. And the election is in January, and so we should make the appropriate decision, which is to approve this report, move it forward. And again, I can't say enough about Starlight, who is the developer, as we've heard, or the applicant, as we've heard from staff. I'm just so pleased with respect to how they've responded to a number of issues in my community. And in fact, I will say this, Madam Chair, that they've gone beyond what I thought was, appropriate to ensure that the issues were addressed. They're working collaboratively with our city staff to continue to ensure that the issues are addressed. And they didn't take the approach that, that's not our problem, it's our property, but we are not the ones that are creating the problem. They have actually invested resources to address the issues, whether or not it's the parking lot challenges that we were actually having, and just some of the other things that were brought to their attention. So I just wanted to applaud them and thank them very much for their great work in the community, and simply that they're willing to listen and at the same time willing to go above and beyond to ensure that community safety is adhered to, and to ensure that the challenges that we're experiencing on their property through no fault of their own. I mean, it's been clearly defined whether or not it's our, in relationship in terms of bringing the police to the table and the security consultants that they've actually brought to the table. I want to thank them publicly for the great work, and the leadership team of Starlight. I'm just so impressed with what they have done to help my community. So on behalf of my community, thank you, and I move this agenda item in front of us today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deputy Mayor Thompson. Thank you, Councillor Lai, for your important questions and speaking to this item. Any other speakers? Okay, I think the questions that were raised were clear, that this will be held after the new councillor is elected and they'll be able to participate in that process. So I think everybody seems very comfortable with that. So on that basis, let's move forward with the vote. All those in favor of this item? Okay, and that's unanimous. Thank you. That brings us to item 20.2, preliminary report, 3150 Eglinton Avenue East, official plan and zoning amendment application in Ward 24. We have two speakers. The first speaker is Miroslav Glavic. Mr. Glavic, you have 5 minutes.
Just so you all know, my last name is pronounced Glavic, not Glavic.
Make that mistake again. Thank you.
I know. Okay, I'm going to roughly say almost the same thing, but slightly different, as there's different language. In Ward 24, there's Tamil, Gujarati, Tagalog, Urdu, Bengali, Mandarin, Cantonese, Persian, and Spanish. The top 10. The same issue many of us immigrants face. One of the things is this: staff provided notice to the community consultation meeting to landowners and residents within 120 meters of the application site. My office is just outside at 120 meters. I know that the local councillor is my favorite Scarborough councillor, who does very well on Twitter and informing his constituents. A lot of these community consultations could be done that. And to put one sentence, if you require any accommodation under AODA, contact this telephone number or email, something that doesn't occur in a lot of consultations. As Councillor Ainsley knows, my office is there, and I have a lot of staff that work out of that office that have issues, AODA type issues, and the consultation can also be live streamed for people who can't make it, because I have a lot of them who require wheelchairs and would like to attend the community consultation. And the city could also communicate this on the social media. I don't know if the city has Facebook, they have Twitter, Instagram, things the local councillor use this a lot, you know? A lot of these consultations, many people, in all your words, are not aware of them. They could be interested. That's it. Thank you. The end.
Thank you, Mr. Glavich. Got it right that time.
Thank you.
Are there questions for the deputant? Okay, our next deputant is Kevin McCrow.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, my name is Kevin McCrow, and I'm the planner representing the applicant for 3150 Eglinton Avenue East. I'm available for questions from yourself or members. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for this deputant? Okay, seeing none, are there any questions for staff? No questions for staff. Does anybody like to speak to the item? Councillor Ainsley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll move the recommendations in the report. Thank you very much.
Great. Seeing no other speakers, all those in favor? Staff recommendations? Item is unanimous. Thank you. That takes us to our final, I believe, although I will verify with clerks afterwards, our final item 20.7, right turn and U-turn prohibitions, Military Trail in Ellesmere Road. I do have a few questions. Does anybody else have questions on this item? Okay, thank you. So for transportation staff, I just want to confirm the changes that you're making there in the interim until this intersection is fully reconstructed, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. This is an interim solution until a more permanent solution, which we're anticipating in 2023 to 2024.
Okay. And what is the problem you are trying to solve here? Like, why are you making this recommendation on the right turn prohibitions?
We've received inquiries from the university about making the intersection accessible. They have a number of students who have visual impairments or other challenges crossing through this intersection. And to install an accessible pedestrian signal, we need to make these changes.
Okay, and now specifically, one of the concerns of the deputants that wrote in was about if you travel north on Military Trail and make a right onto Ellesmere. So they were wondering, is it possible to leave this turn open? Just granted that, you know, most students probably wouldn't cross that way. So is that a possibility?
Through the chair, unfortunately, that's not a possibility, considering that the APS works on an audible tone signal. We can't control, when they are heard by people. Depending on the ambient noise levels in the intersection, we can't be having people trying to cross getting a false positive where they hear a signal indicating them to cross, yet it might not actually be safe to do so. So the closure of those channels are required.
Okay, so they might not know which side of the road I call it the BP thing. It sounds like it has a formal name, APS. They might not know which side of the road the BP thing is on.
Yes, that's correct. And, the channels are yield controlled. They're not stop controlled. So a false signal telling someone who has a visual impairment to go through the channel could have bad consequences.
Okay, thank you. And sorry, my final question on this. I just want to ensure the timing. Can you time this appropriately so that the right turn prohibitions are done at the same time that the APS or BP thing, as I call it, is installed?
Yes, certainly we'll take measures to ensure that the installation is coordinated between the APS, the installation of signage for right turn prohibitions, and the actual closure of the channels.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your work on this. Accessibility for the visually impaired students at the university is very important. So I'm glad that you've taken this request seriously. Thank you. Are there any other questions on this item? Anybody to speak to this item? Okay, I think that's it. We can vote on this item. I'm happy to move staff recommendations. All those in favor? Okay, any opposed? This item carries. Thank you to staff for all your work on that and answering the questions. I will check with the clerk that I have covered all the items and we are done.
The only remaining item is the bills and bylaws motions, please.
Okay, do you mind pulling those up as we do?
Certainly, they'll be on the screen momentarily.
Okay, that the Scarborough Community Council pass and declare as bylaws bills 1056 to 1059 and 1062 to 1064 prepared for the December 9th, 2020 meeting 20 of the Community Council. Councillor Ainsley, are you prepared to move this?
So moved.
Thank you, Thank you, Councillor Ainsley. All those in favor? Item passes unanimously. Do you mind pulling up the next one? That the Scarborough Community Council pass and declare as bylaw a confirmatory bill to confirm the legislative proceedings of the Scarborough Community Council acting under delegated authority at meeting 20 on December 9th, 2020. Councillor Lai, are you prepared to move this one?
I'll move.
Thank you, Councillor Lai. All those in favor? Item passes unanimously. Is there any others that we need to move?
That concludes our business.
Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Look forward to next Scarborough Community Council, I believe is in the new year.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
and
Christmas.
Happy New Year.